This is the story about
Oh
Grace,
God,
the girl who
HIV
listened to the wrong
positive too.
voice. This is a
Mama and
painful
Papa would
lesson
deal
every
with me.
student must hear. Grace has always been known as the quiet church girl,
Now we are
the
both
girl who never
positive.
missed Sunday services, the kind of girl who carried a small Bible everywhere she went. At
Now we are
home,
both
her
positive.
mother prayed every morning before sunrise. Her father always had one piece of advice he repeated again and again. Grace, the world will speak to you one day. Be careful which voice you listen to. Grace never really understood what he meant. She was just a teenager with dreams of becoming successful, dreams of making her parents proud. And when she finally gained admission into secondary school, it felt the beginning of something beautiful. Her parents were proud. Her mother hugged her tightly the morning she left for the boarding school. Remember who you are, she whispered. Grace nodded confidently. She had no idea how much her life was about to change. When Grace arrived at the school hostel, everything felt new. New faces, new environment, new freedom. For the first time in her life, her parents were not there to guide her daily decisions. And this was when she met Sandra. Sandra was her assigned hostel roommate. Sandra was different from Grace in every way. She was bold, confident, outspoken. She laughed loudly and seemed to know everything about life outside school. At first, Grace admired her. Sandra looked like the kind of person who would never be afraid of anything. But very soon, Sandra began to notice something about Grace. Every night before sleeping, Grace would open her Bible and pray quietly. One night, Sandra laughed from the top bunk. Grace, are you serious? She looked up with, what do you mean? Sandra shook her head and smiled. Do you still believe in all these church rules? Grace felt slightly embarrassed. Well, yes. Sandra laughed again. You are too innocent. Grace ignored her. But night after night, Sandra kept teasing her. Life is meant to be enjoyed. You can't live like a church mommy girl forever. Everyone has a boyfriend here. Those words slowly started planting seed in Grace's mind. Soon, Sandra began introducing Grace to different kind of life. Late night phone calls with boys, secret conversation behind the hostel building, stories about relationship and romance. Grace felt uncomfortable at first. It was a world she had never stepped into before. Whenever she hesitated, Sandra would say the same thing. Relax, nothing will happen. Weeks passed and slowly Grace started changing. She stopped reading her Bible at night. She started listening more to Sandra, and the voice of her parents slowly became quiet. On Saturday, it was visiting day, but Sandra had a different plan. She walked up to Grace and said, I have a plan. I want you to meet someone. Grace looked confused. Who? A friend from another school. Grace hesitated. I don't think that's a good idea. Sandra rolled her eyes. Grace, you worry too much. After several minutes of convincing Grace, she finally agreed. She followed Sandra outside the school gate. That moment, that single decision would change her life forever. The boys Sandra introduced her to seemed friendly. They talked, they laughed. Everything felt harmless at first, but before Grace realized it, the situation went further than she had ever imagined. She crossed a line she had once promised herself she would never cross. And afterwards, a strange feeling sat heavily in her heart. Something inside her whispered, you shouldn't have done this. But Sandra brushed it off. You are overthinking. Weeks passed. Then Grace began noticing changes in her body. She felt tired almost every day. Morning sickness started. Her appetite changed. Fear slowly began to grow inside her. One evening, she finally spoke to Sandra. I think something is wrong with me. Quickly, they went to visit a clinic outside school. Grace sat nervously as the nurse checked the test results. The nurse looked at her quietly.
I am pregnant?
Then she asked a question. Are your parents
enjoy
aware of this? Grace shook her head slowly and said, no. Her heart was rising. The nurse sighed and said, you are pregnant. The room suddenly felt silent. Grace? Me? Grace could not breathe. Pregnant at 16 years old, her dreams, her education, her future. Everything felt like it was collapsing at once. But the shock was not even over. The nurse recommended more tests, and a few days later, the final results arrived. Grace held the paper in her hand, shaking. The nurse spoke gently and said,
HIV positive
"You've tested
too.
positive for HIV."
Mama and Papa would deal
Grace
with me.
felt like her world had shattered completely. Tears streamed down her face. How? How did this happen? But deep down, she already knew. What hurt her even more was what happened next. Sandra slowly distanced herself. The same friend who pushed her into everything suddenly disappeared. She didn't know what Sandra was positive to, and she wanted Grace to also be positive as well. And she has vowed to do the same to every other new student that she could lay her hands on. Students whispered about her. Teachers looked at her with concern. Every night she cried quietly
Lord,
into her
please
pillow
forgive me. I am
until one
sorry. I
evening
was
something
foolish, God.
changed. Grace reached under her
Lord, please
pillow and
forgive
found
me. I
a
am
small
sorry.
Bible,
I
the
was
same Bible she
foolish,
stopped
God.
reading months ago. She opened it slowly, and suddenly she remembered her father's words. Tears rolled down her cheeks. For the first time in months, Grace knelt beside
Lord,
her bed.
please forgive me. I am
God,
sorry. I was foolish,
I wish I
God.
had listened. I
Lord,
was
please
foolish.
forgive
I
me. I
have
am
done
sorry.
something
I
wrong.
was
Grace could not
foolish,
change what had
God.
already happened, but she made a
Lord,
decision.
please forgive me.
If
I
her
am
story
sorry.
could
I
not
was
be
foolish,
erased,
God.
then it could become a warning.
Lord, please
Months
forgive me. I
later,
am sorry.
during the school
I
fellowship,
was
Grace
foolish,
stood in
God.
front of the younger students. Her voice trembled as she spoke. I made one wrong decision because I listened to the wrong voice. The room went silent. Please choose your friends carefully. Not everyone who laughs with you wants the best for you, and one moment of pressure can change your life forever. Some girls in the crowd began to cry because deep down they understood the truth in her voice. Grace's story is painful, but it carries a very strong message every young person should hear. Sometimes the most dangerous voices in our lives are not the ones closest to us.
But I won't
Choose
hide from my
wisely
fear.
because one decision can shape your
With
life
God,
forever.
I can face anything. I regret what I did, but I won't hide from my fear. With God, I can face anything.